So in this video, I'm going to be going over the 2.1 to 2.3 test review. The first thing wants me to describe the transformation represented by g. This is actually labeled wrong. It should be called g of x. So first thing I have is this 1/2 out front. This is a vertical because it's out front, and then it's a compression because it's a fraction. And then I just need to say of 1/2. Then I have this plus 2, which means it is going left or right, opposite the sign. So this is going left 2. So I'm going to start off by graphing my parent function. That starts at 0, 0, and then each of those go up 1 over 1. Now for my new one, I'm going to go left 2 for my vertex. And then instead of going up 1, I'm going to multiply that by 1/2. So I'm going to go up halfway on each side. So my new graph is fatter. Compressions make the graph fatter, stretches make it skinnier. Think of a balloon. If I'm pressing down on it, it gets fatter. If I'm stretching it, it gets skinnier. Number 2 says a basketball is thrown up in the air towards the hoop. The table shows the heights in y in feet of the basketball after x seconds. Find the height of the basketball after 5 seconds. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. So it tells me to use quadratic regression to determine an equation to model the data. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to type this into my calculator. I'm going to go to second. Nope, not second. I'm going to go stat and then edit. If I need to clear out my list, I go up to the top where it says L1, L2. I press the clear button, arrow back down, and it clears out. So I go up to L1, press clear, arrow down, and it clears it out. So I'm going to enter my x values first, 0, 9, 18, and then 6, 10, 6. Then I go second mode to go back home. And then I want to go math, not math. Stat, and then calc. And this time I want to pick quadratic regression. So I'm going to choose choice 5. All the way down to calculate, press enter. It gives me these values. It also tells me to round to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. So I'm going to use that to come up with my equation and round by 2 decimal places. I get y equals negative 0.05 x squared plus 0.89x plus 6. Then I need to figure out after 5 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in 5 for each of my x's. I have y equals negative 0.05 times 5 squared plus 0.89 times 5 plus 6. I noticed when I was grading your homeworks, a lot of you tended to skip the a value out front. Remember to type that in because that's an important part of the equation. So I have negative 0.05, oops, 1 parentheses, 5 squared plus 0.895 plus 6 gives me 9.2. So this was measured in feet, so my answer should have the word feet in it. Okay, number 3 wants me to identify the vertex and the axis of the symmetry. This I want to use negative b over 2a for my x value and then plug in x to find my y. So, I'm going to use that for this one, not this one. This one is already in vertex form. This is f of x equals a x plus x minus h, not plus h. Plus k. hk is my vertex. So my h here is the 2, and my k is negative 1. So opposite my sign for the h, the same sign for my k. My axis of symmetry, which I'm going to abbreviate AOS, is x equals negative 2. It's always my x value from my vertex. Over here on the second one, that's where I want to use the x equals negative b over 2a. So my a is 3, my b is 6, and my c is 1. So I'm going to plug in. I get x equals negative 6 over 2 times my a value, which is 3. So negative 6 over 6 gets me negative 1. And then I want to go ahead and plug in negative 1. So I have 3 times negative 1 squared plus 6 times negative 1 plus 1. Which gets me negative 2. So my vertex is negative 1, negative 2. And my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. Okay, number 5 wants me to determine the following for the quadratic function below. I have my vertex, which is hk, and a point, which is my xy. So I'm going to plug into the formula f of x equals a minus, or times x minus h squared plus k. I want to plug in the values I know. Remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So I have 0 equals a, and then instead of x, 4 minus my h is 1 squared plus my k value of 5. So I want to go ahead. 4 minus 1 is 3. That's still squared. 3 squared is 9, so that goes in front of the a. I want to isolate my variables, so I'm going to start off by subtracting 5 on both sides. I get negative 5 equals 9a. Go ahead and divide both sides by 9. I get a equals negative 5 ninths. So I'm going to plug back in. I get y equals negative 5 ninths. And then x minus my h value, which is 1. Don't forget to square it. I also noticed a lot of people left that off on their homework. And then plus my k value of 5. For quadratic equations, my domain is always going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. And then my range is my y values. So I go down forever, but I stop at 5. So this is negative infinity to 5. Negative infinity gets a parentheses because that's not a specific number. 5 is included, so it gets the square bracket. Number 6 says a person throws a ball, releasing it from his hand. The ball's height above the ground h in feet after t seconds since it has been thrown can be modeled by this function, where h equals g of t. So when does the ball reach its maximum height? I can plug into the vertex formula. That is going to be the negative b over 2a. So I'm going to start off by labeling my a, b, and c. A is negative 16, b is 48, and c is 6. So I'm going to plug in. I'll do my work off to the side. I have x equals negative 48 over 2 times negative 16. That is negative 48 over negative 32, which if I simplify on the calculator, 32, gets me 1.5. So this is 1.5 seconds. What is the ball's maximum height? I want to plug back in. So I have negative 16 times 1.5 squared plus 48 times 1.5 plus 6. Which gets me, oops, that's on the light, 42. So that is in feet. What is its initial height? So what is my y-intercept? I'm going to plug in 0. To get my y-intercept, I have negative 16 t squared plus 48t. Oh wait, I was plugging in 0, not t. So anything times 0 is 0. So I have 0 plus 6 gets me 6 feet. And then when does the ball reach the ground? So for this one, I want to go ahead and actually plug this equation into the calculator. So I'm going to go to y equals and type in my equation. Instead of t, I'm going to use x. Oops. Plus 6. Then I'm going to go ahead and graph this. So I can see it's crossing over here. What I can do is I can go second trace, and then choice number 2 is 0. I want to arrow over until I have my black dot on the left side of where it crosses. So right here, press enter. Arrow to the right, press enter twice, and this gets me 3.12. And this is time, so seconds. This one wants me to solve the following equations. I always have to set equal to 0 first. So, on this first one, I want to go ahead and subtract 65 on both sides. So I get w squared minus 8w minus 65 equals 0. I'm looking for what multiplies to negative 65 and adds up to negative 8. If I don't know that, remember I can always do negative 65 divided by x on my calculator. And if I go second table, let's go start back at 0. Second table, I'm looking for these two numbers that add up to negative 8. I have positive 5 and negative 13. That adds up to negative 8. So I have w plus 5, w minus 13 equals 0. From here, I need to use the 0 product property to set these equal to 0 to solve. So I have w plus 5 equals 0, w minus 13 equals 0. First one, I want to subtract 5 on both sides. I get w equals negative 5. Second one, I add 13 on both sides. W equals 13. On the second one, again, I want to get it equal to 0, so I'm going to add 10a and 16 to both sides. So I get a squared plus 10a plus 16 equals 0. I'm looking for what multiplies to 16 and adds to 10. That is 8 and 2. So I have a plus 8, a plus 2. Still equals 0. So then I'm going to go ahead and set these individually equal to 0. And then I want to solve. I get a equals negative 8, a equals negative 2. Over here, I want to move that 70 over. So I have m squared plus 19m plus 70 equals 0. I'm looking for what multiplies to 70 and adds to 19. This one, I don't know. Oops, so I'm going to do, this is a positive 70. Go back to my table. I found 5 and 14. So m plus 5, m plus 14 equals 0. Set each of my factors equal to 0. First one I want to subtract 5, I get m equals negative 5. Second one I subtract 14, m equals negative 14. Number 8 wants me to graph without my calculator. So, first one is asking me to find the vertex. This is in vertex form. So this is my hk, and remember it's opposite the sign, so that is going to be negative 1, negative 5 for the h. Axis of symmetry is always my x value, so x equals negative 1. Domain is always negative infinity to infinity for quadratics. I want to know my range. This one, it has a positive a value, so it opens up. So that means my low point is my vertex. So I have negative 5 to infinity. Negative 5 is my lowest. Infinity goes up. Then I want to find my y-intercept. Plug in 0 for this. So I'm going to go back up with my equation. I have 3 times 0 plus 1 squared minus 5. 0 plus 1 is 1. Minus 5, not plus 5. 1 squared is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Minus 5 equals negative 2. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 2, because I plugged in 0 to get that negative 2 value. Then I just need to go ahead and graph this. So my vertex is negative 1, negative 5. I have my y-intercept at negative 2. I have my axis of symmetry through this. So that means I reflect over that to get my other point. And then I just connect my points. Okay. My next one is given to me in this form, which is standard form. To find my vertex, I'm going to do negative b over 2a. So my a is 1, my b is negative 2, and my c is negative 3. Plugging in, I get negative 2 over 2 times 1. So that's positive 2 over 2, which is 1. Then I want to plug in 1. So I have 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 3, which is 1 minus 2 minus 3. 1 minus 2 is negative 1, minus 3 is negative 4. So my vertex is negative 1, negative 4. Then my axis of symmetry is always my vertex. So x equals negative 1. I'm going to skip my intervals for a second. I have it opens. This is looking for up or down. It has a positive a value. So it opens like this. That means it opens up. It has a minimum value. And that is my y value. So negative 4. Okay. On this one, I also want to go ahead and find my y-intercept. I plug in 0 for my y-intercept. So I have 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 3, which is 0 minus 0 minus 3, which is just negative 3. So I plot that point. I'm going to plot my axis of symmetry. I'm going to reflect that point over, and then I'm going to continue to graph. Okay. Now I'm looking for my positive interval. This is where my x values are give me positive y values. So right there and there. This is x is less than, because it's going to the left, negative 3. And then I have over here, x is starting at 1 and going to the right. Then my negative interval is where I have negative y values. So from here to here, that is between negative 3 and 1. So I write negative 3 is less than x is less than 1. Okay, so my microphone kept cutting off, so I apologize. But anyways, this one wants it in vertex form, which I've written right here. This is my point, so that's xy, and this is my hk. I'm going to plug everything in and solve for a. So I have 2 equals a, parentheses 4 minus 2 squared plus 3. So then I want to do the parentheses first. 4 minus 2 is 2, so I have 2 squared plus 3. Then I want to figure out what 2 squared is. That is 4. I write numbers in front of the letters. So I have 4a. I want to subtract 3 on both sides. I get negative 1 equals 4a. I want to isolate my variable, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 4. So I get negative 1/4 equals a. And then I plug back into the equation. So I have y equals negative 1/4 x minus 2 squared plus 3. So the x and y should be the only letters that remain at the end. Number 10 wants me to write an equation in factored form. So that is y equals a, parentheses x minus p, times x minus q, where p and q are my intercepts, and x, y is a point on the line. So this is my xy, this is my p, this is the q. P and q always goes with the ones that have 0 values for their y. So plugging in, I have 8 equals a. Then my x was negative 2 minus negative 1, and then negative 2 minus 2. I'm going to go ahead and solve for a. So I have negative 2 minus negative 1 is the same thing as negative 2 plus 1, so negative 1. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. Then I want to go ahead and multiply. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. Divide both sides by 4. I get a equals 2. Then I want to go ahead and write this as an equation. So I have y equals 2. X minus my p value, which was negative 1. And x minus my q value, which was 2. I don't want the double negatives, so I'm going to rewrite this as x plus 1. And this is my finalized answer.